Hey, Donna.
Hey, Leanne.
I love our music.
I know. And I love your visuals. You're doing such a great job. Sorry, I'm loud. You're doing such a great job. I love it. A
Thanks.
little bouncing burger.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When I went looking for pictures on like fat, it's not like,
It's never sexy.
cartoons are the best. Like a little blob of white junk. Anyway, so today we are talking about fat. It's called the Skinny on Fat. We're just gonna dive right into this episode, and this will be interesting. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about with fat, so we won't cover everything. And we are not medical doctors, so there you go. This is for fun. This is to learn a little bit more than you knew before about fat.
Learn a little, teach a little. We're trying to give you as much information as we have. As always, things are always going to change, and science is going to discover new things, but we're trying to bring you the most updated information, and do what you will with it.
There you go. All right. I think we agreed to start, it's just the easiest place to start. A little bit of vocabulary, a little bit of understanding about what fat is. So the first thing is really just the basics of 101 is when we talk about fat, there are two main types of fat when we talk about it in the health and wellness arena. So we're not talking about like fat and lubricants for machinery, obviously. We're gonna
or other things.
Or other things.
Lubricants, I'm thinking other things.
Yeah. Or they add fats to different. Anyway. So the point is, we are talking about what is called, in scientific terms, adipose tissue, which is your body fat, which is fat cells, and then the other fat that everybody talks about are lipids, which are dietary fats. Now, we're not going to use adipose tissue and lipids throughout the conversation because that's not normal speak, and we will just end up talking on our top of ourselves. But the point is that these are two very, very different things. We will probably talk mostly about dietary fat and a little hop into adipose tissue body fat. But I think let's dive right into the whole subject of dietary fat does not mean and does not equate to fat in your body. Like if a person is eating a lot of fat, it doesn't mean that person is going to be fat. And go, Donna.
So it's funny because we just had this conversation before and Megan was a little hesitant for me to bring this up, but we have to understand that the information, anyone who grew up in around the 80s, earlier or during the 80s, would remember all of a sudden grandma replacing butter with margarine and nuts being, demonized, and avocados being demonized, and all good in the world being demonized, because we got the information that fat makes you fat, right? And so everyone just freaked the hell out and decided that they're going to stay away from fat. Dietary fat, that is. And we now know, this has been discovered really, I think in the last century, that the information was false to begin with. And what happened was Harvard scientists were going to explore the effects of sugar on the body. Sugar lobby freaked out, paid them off, and told them to put the heat on fat. Okay, sugar lobby, come at me, I don't care. So the thing is that then, money played a bigger role than actual information. And you can really Google it and find a lot of information about this specifically. And, what happened then was that the information about the types of fat, we didn't get details on. We just heard the word fat, right? And so today we know that there is a difference between the fat that comes from avocado versus the fat that comes from McDonald's fries, right? Or different fats are not created equal. So that's basically my rant about that, and why I think that we really need to understand that the body needs fat. our brain is over 60% fat. It needs fat in order to work better. So remember the 80s when also brain fog kicked in because everyone was deprived of fat. And so now everyone was slowly starting to gain weight, unfortunately. And brain fog into the picture.
Yeah, there was also a big push. I can't remember which president it was. I should probably know which president it was, but there was a president that ate a lot of red meat and then died of a heart attack. I'm pretty sure everybody listening is yelling at me that I should know this. Anyway, but this happened, I think, in the late 60s, 70s. I don't remember who it was. Anyway, but that was also another kind of cultural thing in the US specifically. We're talking about the US when we're talking about the sugar lobbies as well. So there was also this other kind of, oh, look, the president ate a lot of red meat and died of a heart attack. So this kind of correlation and not necessarily causation. So there was a big link there. So a lot of people were like, oh, okay, maybe we shouldn't eat so much red meat and so on and so forth. So that kind of links into this whole thing with misinformation in the US in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Also, the link that I put into the chat, there's a PubMed article about, and that's the one I put up a little earlier here. And of course, for the podcast, the link will be in the show notes. This particular article talks a lot about the studies that were done and how with different economic classes of people and different types of diets and so on. And what they basically could say is that there isn't a strong causation between dietary fat and a person who is obese. So an obese person doesn't get obese from eating dietary fat, let's say.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. And then the last line, I want to read the line because this is what I found. It says, the last line, this is in the abstract of that PubMed article. It says that, moreover, within the US, a substantial decline in the percentage of energy from fat. So that means the amount of calories that people are getting from fat. So, there's the fat, protein, and carbs, right? And so all your calories come from a combination of those three different macronutrients. So what they're saying is there was a substantial decline in the percentage of the calories coming from fat during the last 2 decades. And that actually corresponded to a massive increase in the prevalence of obesity. And it says diets high in fat do not appear to be the primary cause of the high prevalence of excess fat in our society, and reductions in fat also will not be the solution. So I think I would love to talk about hormones now, because I think this is a big problem, especially for women, because one of the things that that fat does in our body is regulate hormones. So maybe we can hop over into that area a little bit. When I think probably the most, let's say, visual or most seen way that this shows up is in women who have very, very low fat body fat percentages, and how this messes their menstrual cycle up. Yeah. So I knew when I was in high school, very, very thin lady who ran cross country, and she didn't get her menstrual cycle, her period, until she was like 17 or 18 years old. Women who are already had their menstrual cycle, if they have a dramatic decrease in body fat, can also have a problem with their menstrual cycle. So we need fat. And I think that's kind of where I'm going with that, is that we need fat in order for our body to function correctly. So it's definitely important that we don't eliminate this from our diet, and also don't try to get to a body fat percentage which is unhealthy.
Exactly. Totally agree. But that, I think, leads us to what are the types of fat, because not all fat
Mm.
is created equal, right? So you'll hear people talk about saturated fat, trans fats, poly and monounsaturated fats. And what are the differences, right? What do we need to watch out from, and what do we need to be happily consuming without necessarily weighing it, counting it, making sure that we're not, that we're getting not too much, not too little, or whatnot. I think there has been, again, a lot of misconception, misunderstanding about saturated fats. I would love to hear what you researched and have in mind, because you're the scientist. But what from my direction, I think that, we need to understand that the trans fats are the problematic ones, right? The
Mm-hmm.
trans fats are the ones that we really need to just
Mm-hmm.
really, as much as possible, stay away from, for sure, at least in our home cooking. If not also when we're out and about is a little bit harder, because we don't really know what is being used to cook your meal. But yeah, I think that that's really important to understand, because that actually puts a little bit of a hierarchy in the
Mm-hmm.
fat world, and what we should consume and what we should probably try to avoid.
Yeah, definitely. Trans fats, that got a lot of publicity in the States, at least, because honestly, I'm not sure if trans fats were ever allowed in Europe, because Europe
Mm.
usually has a higher, a lower tolerance, I mean, to that kind of, you have to prove that it's healthy, not prove that it's bad type of philosophy when it comes to food and intake of food in Europe. So, but at least in the US, I know that there was a quite a big kerfuffle about trans fats in the 90s. And a lot of, because every time you saw a packaging, then it would say no trans fats, trans fat free, no trans fats. And I think now, if I'm not mistaken, that trans fats are becoming, I think they had to stop being used in mass production of things. I could be wrong about that, but I thought that they gave manufacturers, like, I don't know, a good 10 or 15-year lead time, that was like, you're not supposed to have trans fats anymore, because it is the only fat that's really linked to increased body fat and obesity. Even if you don't change the number of calories that you're eating. Um, they're so trans fats are, um, they are saturated fats, and so saturated fats are, you hear often saturated and unsaturated, and let's talk just a second about what that means. So when you have um, oil, things that are at room temperature, a liquid, these are the easiest way to remember this, those are unsaturated. So like olive oil is unsaturated.
So,
And
so let me just add something, because all of
oh,
them will
sure.
be liquid, right? All of them mainly will be liquid in room temperature. What you want
No,
to also make sure that
not saturated
when it's
fats.
cooled, that's true. But
Yeah.
when it's cooled, also that it actually changed its form, which will tie us also to later on what I was about to say. So
Yeah, but
that's my,
no,
go
that
ahead.
was my point, was that saturated fats tend to be solid at room temperature. So that's your
Yeah.
margarines, your butters, and other things. So that's why I was pointing out that it's quite easy to tell saturated versus unsaturated just at looking at something at room temperature. But go ahead. What were you going?
Yeah,
Where were you
no.
going with
So
that?
my kind of way of helping people understand what is, and again, we'll get into what are the fats that are okay to consume, what in which way, because the temperature of the fat is also quite important. But what I was going to say is, I think the easiest way to really recognize if a fat is actually a good source of fat for you is, does it change in form when it's in the refrigerator versus on your countertop, right? So my coconut oil, for example, is my thermometer at home. I know that when my coconut oil is melted, I'm a happy girl, because it's nice and warm and it doesn't take much temperature, so it's really temperature sensitive, right? Even your
Mm-hmm.
butter, which does have some saturated fat in it, um, or trans fats even, it actually changes its form when it's out of the fridge and when it's in the fridge, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
will start kind of like wilting and melting and stuff even in room temperature when you leave it out there. Margarine, you can wait for a very long time. Nothing will actually happen to that thing. So it's just something, again, to keep in mind, because where I'm leading us towards is also what are the fats that we don't necessarily want to consume. And those might not actually be trans fats per se, but they won't change their form. So if you put it in the fridge, if you put sunflower in the fridge, it will still be liquid. Whereas olive oil, you'll start seeing kind of like, on your soup and stuff, you'll start seeing islands of fat or even animal fat, right? So that was my little rant. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You're good. The only thing is that you said there was trans fat in butter, and that's
sorry.
There's no, just it's saturated. That's
right. Sorry,
but you're right. Yeah, and I actually butter is an interesting one because I love butter. Butter is my go-to. I have butter and olive oil. This is my go-to. But then there's also ghee or clarified butter when you take out the milk fats, and that also changes a little bit the texture. So you can also have a lot, like the butter is more creamier with more of these milk solids in. So that's also another indicator of the quality of the butter that you're getting, or let's just say the different types of butter that you get. So many. Now I want to go fry some onions in butter. I want to saute them in butter. That's my favorite thing. Sauteed onions in butter with some salt. Oh,
you don't need anything else in life, really. You really don't.
Okay, so let's run through the different what's in these different things, examples of these different types of fats, dietary fats. So the first one is the monounsaturated fats, and that is kind of what everybody knows as the fats that are used in the Mediterranean diet. These are the good ones. These are the olive, peanut, canola oils, that tree nuts, tree nuts like almonds, pecans, and hazelnuts, seeds like sesame and pumpkin seed, avocado. These are all sources of monounsaturated fats. Now, we do have an episode coming up where we've talked with a lady about olive oil and about the processing. So I don't think we're going to get in too deep to the processing here, but processing can make a good oil bad. Let's just put it that. And then we encourage you to listen to the olive oil episode that we have coming up, because she goes a lot more into how the processing is shit and makes good oil bad. So not all olive oil that's sitting on your shelf at the grocery store is good. Let's put it that way. And that's a good teaser for that episode that's coming up. Let's see. What are your go-to? What oils do you use at home? You just mentioned coconut oil.
So yeah, you're gonna hate me, but some of the oils that you actually mentioned now, I would say are not necessarily ones that I would recommend using. And this is where we're getting into the omega-3s and omega-6s story, right? You guys might have seen our teaser that Megan awesomely put together about omega-6s and omega-3s. So our body does need, it forms omega-9, it needs omega-6 and omega-3 from an external, like we can't form it in our body alone. And the thing about omega-6s and omega-3s is that because the cheaper fats, right? So we're talking about canola oil and sunflower oil and peanut oil and just I'm blanking out on the other ones, but basically, never mind. Those fats are actually super high in omega-6, and because they're cheaper and because they're just overused in restaurants and fast foods and everywhere, we are nowadays instead of getting 1-to-1 omega-3 to omega-6 in our diet, we're actually getting tenfold or more omega-6 to omega-3, which then makes our body quite inflamed, right? Which is where the problem lies. So we're not demonizing omega-6 per se. We're just saying like we're getting so much of it in our diet and we're not really getting enough of omega-3s. How many of you are eating like mountains of fish every day? And we all know that the fish nowadays, not necessarily the best source either, right? Because of the damage, the terrible damage that we're doing to our oceans. So at the end of the day, when we look at the fats, we need to also consider the fact that it might be an okay fat, but those fats are quite processed, highly processed, and they are very, very high in omega-6, which is why a lot of us are battling with chronic inflammation, whether it's an inflammation that you feel or see, or leading towards other illnesses that we don't really know that the source is an actual inflammation. So my favorite now, after yet another rant, some of my favorite fats to use, definitely olive oil, but not in high temperature. Butter, not cooked. So I love to put butter on my steak or on my veg after they come out of, after I've cooked them. Coconut oil, we love. It's coconutty. Obviously, you don't want the one that doesn't taste like coconut, because coconut tastes like coconut. And if it doesn't, then it went through a process, right? Ghee, we love, love, love. But I think it is more suitable to kind of starchy vegetables and grains and things like that. Don't cook your spinach in ghee, because it will taste like ghee, not like spinach. And avocado oil, but avocado oil is stupidly expensive, so we kind of don't use it that much. But it's a great replacement, because the coconut oil, the ghee, and the avocado oil can take very high heat compared to other fats, which you can then fry in or pop in the oven to roast and things like that, and not actually damage the quality of the fat. So Megan put up the link that I have for you. There's a guide, a PDF, with just kind of the hierarchy again of the fats and the oils, where you want to use them, what temperature you want to use them, and which ones you kind of want to maybe cut down on or try to leave out, because again, those are the fats that you most often will get when you go out to eat. You're going to get enough of those out there, so might as well use the good ones at home.
Yeah.
Very long answer to a very simple question.
I use primarily olive oil, and I buy now my olive oil from our guest from the future episode for olive oil. Yes.
Doesn't she have the best olive oil though?
It's really very good. It's very good. And I love the fact that I get 5 liters, and I'm just like, oh, I just need more olive oil. And I just go downstairs and get some more, and I know it's good stuff. And I use canola oil and sunflower oil for some things. So it depends on what it is. And then I have some peanut oil. Actually, you know what I use those oils a lot for? I use them for conditioning my cast iron pans. Because I need some higher heats for that. I can't do that with the olive oil. I don't want to do it with the olive oil. So I use a lot of those so they last forever. But yeah, that's what I condition my cast iron with. Is the peanut oil is the best, because it's got a high temperature. But and butter. I just use butter and olive oil for most cooking, actually.
They're the most delicious too. I mean, they bring in such a nice depth of flavor to your dish versus, the fats that are just.
Yeah. And I think that, but going back to the sources, so the monounsaturated fats, the ones that are good for you. And I would say, even if peanut and canola are on that list, and you were saying you wouldn't necessarily recommend them, I think that if they were if they were processed correctly, let's say if they were minimally processed, I think that they would have similar health aspects. And that's why I said before, your olive oil on your on the groceries, doesn't necessarily mean that that's good for you, or it's because of the way it's been processed. So I think that it's more about the processing and less about the actual location of where it's coming from for some of these things. And because it's just so cheap, like canola and peanut and sunflower, these are really, really, really cheap. And so that they are produced in these high quantities. And it's interesting. I would love to talk with someone who actually produces avocado oil, because I would love to know why avocado oil is so expensive. If it's just like a supply and demand type of thing, or if there is some like major difference in in manufacturing avocado oil. But you mentioned fish, and you mentioned omega-3 and omega-6, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that those are what are called polyunsaturated fats. So just want to make sure that we get the vocabulary up for everyone. Of course, those fats are not also created equal. I think maybe that's like the name of the title of this episode should be All Fats Not Created Equal. That's what it should have been instead of the skinny on fat. But
no, I love that. Love skinny on fat.
And then we did talk about trans fat, and then saturated fats are we touched on coconut oil, dairy products, minimally processed dairy products, egg yolks are saturated fats, and the saturated fats are actually the ones that that got kind of vilified in the world after this president died of a heart attack. And so that's why you'll hear a lot of people, oh, I need to not have saturated fats, which means they usually cut out red meat. They cut out a lot of meats, actually, eggs and dairy products, because those are where the saturated fats lie. But they don't necessarily mean that it's going to change your body composition. So you can actually lose fat and gain muscle and lose weight by eating saturated fats as part of a balanced diet. So I don't think I think that the poor saturated fats, they kind of got the short end of the stick when it comes to, somebody had to be the villain, and it was saturated fats. But
it was fats altogether at first, which makes me want to cry, and then it was saturated fats, and it's kind of like, let's get the information straight.
Well, I think, but that's the problem, right? Is that people, probably media, let's put it, because media is where we get our information. They say, oh, it's too detailed to say this or that, or they do say it, but somehow the term before it, saturated, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, to the average consumer, they just see the word fat. Right? They go, oh, I know there's different fats, but I don't understand. Yeah. And to tell you, honestly, there's a lot of times I'm like, wait, which one is the good one? And I'm trying to go back and remember, which ones should I get? Which one? I mean, I did that the other day. I'm like, which one's better for you? Canola or sunflower? If I have to use those for anything, which one would I, And so I think it's just the case where you just have to kind of, if you're interested in it, you'll know. And if you're not interested in it, like anything else, you won't care, and you'll just grab whatever the cheapest oil is off the shelf and not worry about it.
You're most likely not even listening to this episode if you don't care about it. So there goes that. Yeah, no, but it's, I think, and this is why I know that, some people, I love our duo, because some people will be like you. They'll need the nitty gritty. They'll need the information to kind of understand it. And they'll read the full article beginning to end. And a lot of people are going to read the title and maybe the subtitle. Yeah. And that's about it, right? And so if an article, if we're talking about media, if an article doesn't have that information in there and just in one way, shape, or form say fat is evil, then we've lost most of the population already. Right. To that information. And so I think you're right. I think that the media has a huge part in it. I think that, even with the media, how much do we expect a journalist to research about every single thing that they write about every single day, right? So they need to deliver it in a way that is very quick and easy as well, which is why I put together this PDF, but I also try to explain to people, like, we need to think about the process. Sunflowers are incredible for you. Peanuts are not that bad for you unless you're sensitive to legumes or if they're moldy, right? But they're a good source of some people. Some people also say that peanuts are terrible for you, but I don't know what these people eat at the end of the day, But you want to know that whatever the fat is, the closer the source of it to its original state is going to be better for you, if that makes sense, right? So the sunflowers are going through a huge process. And until they become this fat, they've lost all of the good nutrients in them. They've become very high, very inflammatory fats. And when it comes to coconut oil, you all know, if you all had like just fresh coconut or even dried coconut, you know how fatty it is. It's very, very easy to get the fat out of coconut. It just needs a little bit of pressing, same for olives. And so those are the things that are probably, to try to remember how close am I to the original thing?
Mm-hmm.
And again, thinking about how it reacts to temperature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fridge versus tabletop. So if you're having a countertop, if you're having your sunflower oil or canola oil and things like that in the fridge, they'll still stay beautifully liquid. And if you put, the butter, the coconut oil, the ghee, all of these good high quality fats, even just in the refrigerator, so not huge,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about freezing, they will immediately solidify quite well. And then, so that's kind of the easiest way for me to explain it to people who are not scientists. They're just simple-minded like I am, and want to just get the understanding of, well, what do I use? Just give me the gist of it. You got the PDF,
Mm-hmm.
check it out. Don't throw away anything that you have. Finish using it, But then when you go to the supermarket and you want to buy something, just kind of go like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
well, which one do I get now, and what's going to be better for me at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, I would like to kind of switch from dietary fats now and just tip our little toe into body fat. So the actual fat cells that people have in their body, because I think that that's also there's several different things going on there, and I just want to kind of touch on these things so people again can start to hear a little bit more about the different types of fat that's in the body. Not all fat is bad. So let me throw this one up there. Where are we at? This one. And oh, you're right, Donna. I do want to do a commercial first. I'm seeing Donna's little chat down at the bottom, like, don't forget you have a commercial to do. Yeah, well, when we try new things, then I often forget. So let's do that. Okay, guys, here's my commercial. Hey, you guys, let me tell you a secret. This is Megan here. I have finally launched My Best Self coaching and community. Now, this is a space that anybody can join. It's free to join. There are a lot of good things with the free membership, like events and workshops. There's articles, resources, and not to mention the fact that you just get to connect with the other members. Everybody there is on their own self-improvement journey, personal development journey. Maybe they're building a business. Maybe they're just trying to run their 5K. It doesn't matter. Everybody there is trying to be their best self. Now, if you want to take it to the next level, there is a paid membership, and that's called the Level Up member. Level Up. And with that, you get group coaching every week, which is really awesome because that's super motivating for you to accomplish your goals. You also have weekly goal sharing, which is at the beginning of the week, we share our goals, we help each other out, we support each other. And at the end of the week, we see where we were. And then in addition to that, you can also have your own accountability partner or partners if you want. So all of that plus more is with the paid Level Up membership. So I just wanted to sneak into this episode and tell you a little bit about that. You can check it out at community.mybestself.fit. And I'll leave a link for this in the show notes. I hope to see you there. Bye.
I love that.
Thanks. Okay, now let me restart what I was saying before. I want to shift into body fat and talk just a little bit about that. So I mentioned it kind of at the top of the hour a little bit about how body fat is beneficial to us, especially when it comes to hormones. But let's dive in a little bit deeper here. So there's two kind of topics here. One is the types of fat cells. So you can see those are white, brown, and beige cells. And then these are stored in three different ways. They're stored as essential fat, subcutaneous fat, or visceral fat. So let's just hop right through those real quick. So white fat is what most people think of. White fat is made up of large white cells that are stored under your skin or around your organs. And this is your body's way of storing energy for later use. So I think this is what most people commonly think of as fat in the body. I mentioned it already before that this type of fat also plays a large role in the function of hormones. So specifically estrogen, leptin, which is the hormone that signals or stimulates hunger, insulin, which is your hormone that regulates your blood glucose levels, cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and your growth hormone. So all of those things are impacted by fat. And also this is interesting because fat can have its own so a lot of people think that people have metabolic issues, blood glucose issues and things like that because they're fat, but actually it's sometimes the other way around. They become fat because of those metabolic issues. And then because fat has such a big impact on your hormones, it's kind of like it's like its own hormone ecosystem in itself if you have too much fat on your body. So that's a whole nother topic. It's just wild out there, like the information that you can learn about fat and how it plays in your body. Some statistics or some notes on numbers. So for example, non-athletic people, so normal people who are not ultra athletes, men should have at least somewhere between 14 to 24% of body fat, and women should be 21 to 31% body fat, just as a range. So again, when I said if you're below that range, that can have impacts on your hormones. And if you're above that range, it can also have impacts on type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke, hormone imbalances. I think that's the biggest one. I think we should do a whole episode on hormone imbalances, Donna. Can we put that on the list?
Yes,
hormone imbalances, because that's like this vicious cycle, because once the hormones become imbalanced, it is very difficult to like stick something in there and get them back into balance. It's very difficult, but not impossible. So that's white fat. A brown fat is actually what's primarily found in babies. And then in adults, it's located around your neck and your shoulders. And brown fat kind of has a good, kind of a good vibe in the wellness community, because brown fat is the one where if you're doing kind of like cold water swims, it's supposed to stimulate the brown fat, and brown fat actually helps for you to burn fatty acids. So it's actually a fat that helps you burn fat, but we don't as adults have very much of it, but that's also another topic that I'd be interested in. And then the third type of cell, which is, I had not heard of this before, which is beige, which is apparently kind of coming out with some new research coming out on this. And it is fat cells that somewhere function between brown and white fat cells, where beige cells can burn fat rather than store it. So it's maybe that's what people are talking about when they do these cold water baths or cold water swimming, is maybe they're increasing now the beige cells. So what I find is fascinating is that there's still a lot of research being done about fat cells. It's not like everything is known and that's it. So I think that's exciting. And yeah, so it's those are the three different types of cells. Do you have any thoughts on those three different types of cells, Donna?
Not on those specifically, but I just had a flashback to, we had an episode on sleep, and we did talk to Martin about stress as well. And I think that's something that's really, really important for people to understand, is that, first of all, to listen to these episodes because they're great, but also to understand that, stress, just chronic stress in our life, will be the determinant of, like, are we collecting fat into our fat cells, energy into our fat cells, meaning are we gaining weight, especially around the stomach area and the waist area, and especially, of course, for women, because we're always getting terrible end of the stick. But anyways, that is something to really understand and keep in mind, because I see so many people, so many women come to me and they're like, I need to lose weight, I'm eating healthy, da 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 da. But then you get that energy of like, they're just, just go, go, go. And they're very high stress level jobs, very high stress level at home. And that will already help you or either lose weight or gain weight, depending on what you do with that stress. Okay. So we're as humans, we're always trying to demonize something and find that quick fix. Right. But at the end of the day, a little bit of mindfulness, a little bit of like de-stressing, meditation, breathing exercises. It doesn't have to be something big. We're not expecting anyone to meditate for 20 hours a day, because then, we don't have time to work and make money. But if you do put a little bit more effort into the sleep and the quality of sleep that you're getting, the stress levels, and there's also good versus bad stress. Of course, the good stress keeps us on our toes. The bad stress just wipes us out. Those are the things that you want to keep in mind if you're listening to this episode and we're hoping to hear about how to lose weight, that's one of the things that's going to help you, is to de-stress a little bit, to get a little bit of, one-on-one time with yourself, and and make sure that that's something that you look at even before you're looking at your plate. So that.
Yeah, I think that goes into our ever-present, it's all connected. Like, you can't just focus on one area.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah. Okay, then I think the last thing I wanted to touch on, kind of the sciencey side, is really how we store these things, because I talk about this the most when I'm talking, because I am terrified of visceral fat, but let's get to this in a second. So these fats that I just talked about, white, brown, and beige, are stored in 3 different ways in the body. So the first is essential fat, and that was kind of what I was alluding to again, which is the essential fat is the fat that plays like the major role in your hormone regulation, especially the hormones that control fertility, your vitamin absorption, your temperature regulation, and so on. So this is actually the fat that's found in your brain. And I didn't know this, but there's fat in your bone marrow. I guess that makes sense. I just didn't connect those dots. Nerves, and also the membranes that protect your organs are these essential fats. The next where it's stored is subcutaneous. And this is kind of, again, what everybody thinks of when they think of fat, is they think of white cells and subcutaneous. And subcutaneous just literally means that it's under the skin. That's a combination of white, brown, and beige cells. And that is what you can pinch, that is, that's what you can actually touch and pinch. And they actually measure that with calipers. And obviously, too much of that can lead, again, to imbalanced hormone levels. Now, the one that scares the shit out of me is visceral fat, because visceral fat is what's called belly fat. It is the white fat that is actually stored around your abdomen, around your liver, your kidneys, your pancreas, your intestines, and your heart. And high levels of visceral fat are just so very dangerous. And that's also the type of fat. So if you look at somebody and they don't look fat, right? So they look skinny fat, right? And skinny fat. Cause I am overweight. I can see, I know where my fat is, but somebody who's skinny fat is also, it's even more dangerous, because they could have the fat just around their organs. And then that's actually just as dangerous as being overweight and fat, having. So so that's so I just really wanted to make sure we got those things out there in terms of, so people can talk about things the right way. If you work with a personal trainer, if you work with somebody, a doctor, and they can measure these things, right? You can get a scale that can measure fat, but the best way is to get these things measured. If you're unsure, especially if you're really, really thin and you think you might not have enough body fat, that's also something that I think you should check, because that has just as much impact on your hormones as being overweight, where the fat also affects your hormones. So the balance is to be in the right zone so your hormones and the rest of your body functions okay.
Exactly. Balance your weight instead of trying to lose weight or whatnot. I think that's the most important part, is like, let your body naturally balance itself out by giving it the right information. The right source of information will always bring to the right health. Awesome. So should we tie it up with just a few kind of like boom, boom, boom? Or do you have something else to say?
It just popped into my brain because we're talking about fat, and we talked a bit about dietary fat, but we didn't really talk about diets that were around the idea of fat. And I think that the number one or two, I think they're basically similar diets, which is the paleo and keto diets. I just wanted to mention those because I also wanted just to briefly talk about what does it mean to use fat as energy, because that's also a big thing in media right now. Oh, I'm on the keto diet. And when you burn fat, what does that mean? So let me just quickly run through how that works. So your body has two sources of energy: carbohydrates or fat. Now, your body does not need to eat carbohydrates. It can make carbohydrates from the protein that's in your body, but your body needs fat. And your body can also make fat as well. So, but the point is that when you use energy, when you use carbohydrates as energy, you're not using fat. And when you're using fat, you're not using carbs. So it's kind of one or the other. And these are the two hormones that are called insulin and, oh no, how did I just forget this hormone's name?
Scientist has a glitch. The scientist has a glitch. I don't.
Okay, insulin and all I have in my brain is ghrelin because I just saw it on piece of paper, but it's not ghrelin. Oh shit.
Put the commercial on again.
That's hopeful. Anyway, I'm so upset at myself right now for forgetting this hormone's name. Anyway, but the point is when insulin is on, because you're eating carbs, because it needs to put the blood, the sugar, it needs to take the sugar out of your blood to balance it. Then you're using fat as energy is turned off. Like it's actually a function. And then when your blood sugar gets low and this other hormone, which I will kick myself later for not remembering, that gets turned on, that puts sugar back into your blood. And therefore it also allows you to use fat as energy. So when you eat carbs, you can't burn fat for energy. You're burning fat all the time, regardless of whatever, but you'll burn more fat if you have it as energy. So what does that look like? The fat is converted into what are called ketone bodies. And then the ketone bodies are what is actually used for energy. And your body, because it's kind of like shifting the fuel that it's using, when you do this shift between eating carbs for energy and then shifting to fat for energy, then your body goes through a little transition. And this is often known as the keto flu, where you kind of feel like shit for 3 days, maybe 2 days, 2 to 3 days, depending on how fast you do this, your body shifts. And that you kind of know, okay, if you reduce your carbs and you go through this, like you feel like crap, you feel like you've got the flu, literally, and then you come out the other side and then you're actually using your fat for energy. There is nothing wrong with this. People who have diabetes, they have another condition that's called ketoacidosis, which is bad. That just means that their body is not functioning correctly. But humans that do not have diabetes, being in a state of ketosis is perfectly normal. So I think I covered it, but that's
that's the thing. So one thing to really mention that is I think worth mentioning, now that I've worked with quite a few people who actually had that problem, is some people have a problem with their, if I'm not mistaken, it's their pancreas, which isn't able to break down the fats, and therefore a high fat diet is not good for them. Like they actually will feel sick. I don't know if it's a pancreas or the
your liver is what your liver is what processes fat. Pancreas makes the hormone insulin. So when people who have a
No, where's
problem,
the bile?
that's your gallbladder.
Gallbladder. So I think it's the gallbladder. Anyways,
Yeah.
the thing is that with some, if you notice that you're upping their fats, or you're, trying maybe keto or something like that, and you're not feeling as good, and your poop is, fatty, and you can see it really kind of like floating on the toilet water, or, you're just really feeling unwell when you're having more fat in your diet, then that could point to something, and that's something worth discovering with your doctor, or a practitioner, whoever it is. But yeah, a lot of people do thrive on ketosis, and the difference basically between the two diets that Megan just mentioned, so the paleo and the keto, is that they're both removing the grains and having therefore lower carb, but the paleo doesn't count carbs and doesn't avoid starchy vegetables such as sweet potatoes and carrots and things like that, and therefore getting more carbs. Whereas with keto, clean keto, there's dirty keto and clean keto, and blah, blah, blah. But the kind of like clean keto, you would really, that's where diet and math collides, that's where they lose me. But that's where you really want to know exactly how many carbs you're having a day in order to stay in ketosis, meaning in order to stay in that state that you mentioned, where your energy is drawn out from the fat rather than from carbohydrates.
Right.
I wouldn't recommend doing anything in between, because then you're bouncing in and out of keto flu, and that just, it really defeats all purpose of eating and enjoying your food. You're just constantly feeling iffy because you're going in and out and in and out. So kind of like, definitely feel free to try whatever you feel like trying, but know that they are different diets, and that there's no such thing as no carbs. Cauliflower has carbs. So
Well, there is no carb. If somebody does completely meat
lettuce,
diet,
just eating
no
lettuce, yeah,
meat.
and meat.
No, like
Sure.
take away
So
vegetables.
yeah.
There are people that eat just meat.
Just meat.
So but I want to bring it up again, the hormone issue. So what often happens, or what can happen for women, especially if they try to do these diets where they are burning fat and not having any carbs. Again, carbs are not bad. Your body needs carbs for different things, but there can be a strong hormonal imbalance influence with staying too long on a carb diet, or a low carb diet, without carb loading, which is when every once in a while you just eat all the carbs in one day, so your body kind of continues to make the hormones it's supposed to make, right? So again, back to the whole primal age, if you were in a situation where you weren't eating honey or something, berries, or the other things where these carbs normally came from back in the day, your body would think that it's in starvation mode. And that's another key word that comes up a lot, is starvation mode. And that is true, especially for women. If your body thinks that it's not going to have the calories that it needs, your fertility is affected from that as well. So it is important for women, especially women who want to become pregnant or want to be fertile, that they make sure that they just do it in a smart way, research everything, and make sure that you are still giving your body those carbs every once in a while, because they do need to use those to regulate your hormones as well. So everything is a balance. Everything, your body is just like this very intricate chemical machine. And once one chemical is off balance, that's really what fucks up everything, really, is these chemical imbalances.
And we really do need to understand that, like, a lot of the researches are being made on men, and not on necessarily on, in a very equal, study groups. And women do need, as Megan said, women do need more carbs, especially for their hormones. And I think that that's really, really important to keep in mind. I actually heard about a really interesting research that's been made not too long ago, I think in the last 2 or 3 years, where they actually tested a few groups, of course, and they gave one group was on pretty much a keto diet. So they were pretty much avoiding, a certain amount of carbs onwards. And another group had, I think it was basically kind of low carb during the week. And then one day on the weekend, they would just go crazy. And at the end, they noticed that those who actually, what I like to say, keep their body toes, right? So they actually did have carbs on and off. They actually managed to lose more weight and to feel more energy and to actually, feel better. So, so that's just, again, something to keep in mind. The fact that a diet works for someone doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. You need to really keep in mind all of the different factors that we mentioned, and a lot of them that we didn't even get a chance to mention. And I think another note for us to make, Megan, is other than hormone imbalance, is also to make an episode about carbs, because not all carbs are created equal either. So we're going to get into that as well and kind of help you to understand what's what.
Yeah, no, that's true. All right. So I am satisfied that we have skimmed the fat off the cream, or we've skimmed the fat off the top of whatever we're doing here. And that was a pretty comprehensive 101 from two people who are not medical doctors. Remember, this is for your entertainment only. You can come for us, but that's fine. We don't care. We just wanted to talk about it because, that's why we're here. We just love to talk about this stuff because that's what we do, I think.
Yeah.
Donna, you have anything else that you want to talk about?
I kind of want to know from our audience what they think about our new video positioning.
Yes, that's true. So we're trying a new angle for those of you who are watching on video, which you can watch on video. Thank you, because that helped me. I wanted to remember to plug the video. So if you're listening to the podcast, we are now doing video versions of this. You can watch the video version on Spotify, if that's where you're listening, or you can watch it on the YouTube channel or the Facebook group. And when I mean YouTube, I mean like my YouTube's, So Frickin Healthy YouTube's, Donna's YouTube's, Facebook, again, on all of our different places. So you can find it. And so for those, good job, Donna, for remembering that.
Sure. We're everywhere. You can't get rid of us. You're stuck with us forever. We're like an octopus on your face.
Yeah. But it's funny because I'm like, Donna, let's try some new video camera footage, because I wanted to make it look like we're talking to each other,
looking at each other.
Yeah,
I'm just reach out my hand,
we're touching hands. Okay, yeah,
we're idiots. Yeah, no, I'm just curious. While we were talking, I was like, are people so used to seeing videos face to face? And now they're going to be like, oh my God, this is so disturbing, and hang up? Or are they going to be like, this is cool, this is fresh, this is new? Let us know in the comments.
Yes, let us know. But I see so many podcasts set up this way because, especially even if they're in the same room, because I see a lot that they still have cameras set up where you kind of are at least facing the same way towards each other. So it looks like we're having a conversation.
Okay, so we're in the same room, people. Just let us know what you think about the video.
All right, everyone. I think that wraps it up for today. And give us some comments and all of our good juju. May you have a good juju day. And I don't know what I'm saying. Okay.
Peace out.
Okay. Bye.